So now let's see what happens when he first encounters something that he thinks isn't a bunch of bunk.
And this gets to the people objecting about mainstream science rejecting alternative notions, whether it's ancient archaeology or UFOs or psychedelics or what have you. I don't think it's really that mainstream science has an active wall that they put up to reject things. It's really encompassed or comprised of a lot of individuals who are very busy, who are seeking grant money.
This is key.
And they want to be consistent with their grant, and they don't really have time to look at alternative theories. There's no incentive for them.
Well, and maybe they don't want to lose credibility when they're looking for that
Especially
grant money.
with UFOs,
Exactly.
there's the stigma involved, so
Right.
you have that as well. So it's not really a coordinated effort on the part of mainstream science to reject something. It's just that there's no incentive for the people, and there is disincentive for a lot of them to get involved in some of these more sort of fringy fields.
So now your dad's in this fringy field,
Yes.
and by virtue of that, your mom too, so to
Yes.
speak. So let's talk about where things began shifting for him, where he started through the data, understanding these people aren't all making this stuff up.
That's right. And some of the most compelling witnesses were Air Force pilots.
Yes.
Who are calm under fire, literally, who go through really traumatizing situations with a very calmness and a checklist, whose eyesight is very good, who have no incentive to report a flying saucer or unidentified flying object. And there can be multiple witnesses at the same time, and radar corroboration or gun camera footage, like in the recent disclosures in the New York Times. So they were very compelling. And at the same time that the sort of case history built up, in reality, Project Bluebook investigated over 12,000 cases. Mm-hmm. And even with this very strong mandate to put them all under the rug, they still couldn't explain over 5% or 700 cases. So my father noticed that there was this growing body of compelling cases with highly credible witnesses, and at the same time he saw the increasingly dismissive attitude from the Air Force.
Yes.
And those things just did not go together.
Yeah. And so if we get into some of the highly credible evidence that was seen, I've been curious about this, and it had to do with some archival footage that was in one of the episodes where the military was apparently doing an experimental shot to the moon with a warhead. That was actually brought about in Disclosure, in Stephen Greer's Disclosure, and they showed the original footage. It looked the same as the footage that was shown in Project Bluebook. Did they, in cases, use some archival footage like that?
In sort of the credits, but
Yes.
in the show they actually recreated it. And the production value in the show is so good.
Oh my God, it's an amazingly well done
It's Robert
show.
Zemeckis' cinematographers. So it's got a really filmic feel to it.
Oh, it's wonderfully done. I mean, I can't recommend it highly enough. In fact, I'm going to show my little 12-year-old stepson.
You're going to take them down the rabbit hole.
Because he finally has started reading and going to some sites saying, I think there are other species out there and I'm willing to accept the notion. And so I thought, good, can't wait to show him Project Bluebook.
Really, it's nice to have that sort of openness of spirit.
Yeah, well, he's been super closed. So now he's just opening up to a lot of things all at once because he's been very clear on his point of view on everything politically and all the way through history.
Well, he has his stepmom as a wonderful resource.
Yeah, who listens to their stepmom anyway, right? Okay, so now you were talking about these pilots that had these experiences. Mm-hmm. Now the way it was set up in the series, Captain Quinn had also had an experience.
Yes.
And he was living in deep conflict with himself.
Yes, and that kind of bubbles up and he sees his job, as we talked about, he's the loyal company man, and this is a very strict kind of company.
Yeah.
But then you have this scientist who's very credible, who is not out there in wackadoodleville. He wants to find the answers as well. But when they have these shared experiences of things that seem to be perhaps a threat to national security and can't be answered by this really smart scientist, that starts to bring him on his own character arc as well.
Right. So one of the things is to have your dad like Indiana Jones style. They're out right after an incident, boom, they're in their car and they're on their way,
Yeah.
and to an event.